Hello and welcome to Nuestro Papi, a podcast series about my grandfather, Pedro Enrique Prado Pina. We're here today. Today's our first episode. We're going to be doing more of an introduction for you all. We're extremely glad that you're tuning in today. And in fact, I'm here with my grandfather on the line now. Papi, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
I'd love to. Hello, my name is Pedro Enrique Prado. I was born in Ciego de Ávila, Cuba in 1943. I have 3 beautiful daughters and my wife Nancy. Looking forward to this project that my grandson has developed. I believe in it. I think it will be something important.
So as you've gotten to hear Papi here, he is my grandfather. As you heard, he is from Cuba, from Ciego, Central Cuba. However, I was born here in Florida. His first daughter, Janet, is my mother, and that's how we're related. She was from Dallas. So as you've heard, a few of these locations, Cuba, Texas, and Florida, are the places where my grandfather has lived his life, places where our family has grown as a result of him and our family, our ancestors. So with that being said, I just want to introduce a little bit about myself. My name is Mateo Ashley Prado, born in Naples, Florida. Right now, I am here with my wife, Katie, and we are in Spain. And this is where we'll get to do a lot of this project, Nuestro Papi, over the course of the next few months. So utilizing modern technology, we're able to span both my grandfather's memories, but also through different geographic areas. So Papi, I know that this is a big project. We've actually sat around the table and interviewed you. We didn't do a great job packaging it up, but it was a first step. Now that we're here 10 years later, and as we're embarking on this series, I'd love if you could, we're obviously grateful to a lot of people in our life for who we are today. Would you like to share anybody or some people maybe that you're grateful to,
Well, first, my mom and dad, they created me. They made me possible. I mean, through my life, my family was the most supportive thing in Cuba. My grandmothers, my uncles, my cousins, my sister, so we have, the basic supports. And then I had to leave Cuba, and then I met a lot of interesting people.
Yeah, Papi, are there any people that come to mind maybe that made those impressions on you?
Well, yeah, in Dallas was Dr. Peter Julian. That the day we met, it was my first job as a waiter, and I made mistakes, and then our friendship and bonding that happened. He passed away, but it's still going on with family and his son. And then when I get here to Naples, I met a lot of people but the lawyer George Vega, that was very, very influential and helping me here in Naples when I got here. So there would be other people that I need to recollect, since it's not easy as you go through and then see things, you might pop up some names here and there. Yeah. But we will.
Yeah, that's it. And I feel like as we keep talking, there'll be so many names that we come across and people that really have made an impact on your life, both in Cuba, here in Naples, but also before in Dallas. On the other hand, I feel very fortunate to have the time in my life. I'm 34 years old, living here in Spain, so I'm able to have this time to take this on. And so as far as like gratitude goes, I think back to a lot of people that made an impact, and Papi, you are one of those huge people. You're a huge presence. Everybody talks so greatly about you my whole life, and I got the moment to be raised by you essentially as my grandfather, just a street over. You're kind of a gateway. You are a gateway to our family's past, and you've impacted a lot of us. Without you and your dedication, we wouldn't be here, and I know that, and I feel that. And then of course my mother, she's your daughter. You raised her. She's an amazing mother, and she raised me and made a huge influence on who I am today. My grandmother, well, Tomasa, I really have taken a lot from both you and her, and I will always keep you in my memories today and into the future. And then finally, my wife Katie, she's, no matter what, when I go to bed at night, I'm next to my wife, and she's provided such a great example for me and made me really influenced me to be a better person, a more well-rounded person. Just say I'm so grateful for our family, of course, all the other people that we encounter along the way of our journey. I think what I'll do is just share a couple goals for Nuestro Papi, this podcast series, because this idea didn't come from nowhere, but we do have some pretty clear goals. And as we go through the series, more goals will come up. really, the first one is to create a comprehensive history of your life, Papi, of our family, and especially for our descendants. We hope that this can be passed down for generations so that this moment in our family's life is recorded and folks remember their roots, as we say. And we also want to gain insight into your life. As we meet anybody on earth, we hear stories, but we don't have context. We didn't live your life. And you as our grandfather, we've heard a million stories that are just wild. At times we think there's no way this is true. You're one of those people that just says, oh, by the way, I had this experience with this people or this person. And first of all, we may not even know who that is, but if we do know, then it's even more magnificent. But really, what else was happening in your life and within the world? So that's what I hope that we can do, is create more context so that we have a better understanding. The life that you lived, the sacrifices you made for us and our community. I hope that this can help our community of Cubans that are both in Cuba and in the Americas and around the world have a better understanding of what this experience that occurred with the revolution and the impact that it had on Cuba as a whole and as a culture. A big division created, and that division is still here today, even though we're still bound by a similar history. So I hope that we're able to just kind of learn more about this. We know that there are people all over the world that are impacted by various challenges, whether it be through government, through family, through war, whatever it is, but that causes divisions and fractures within families, cultures, countries. So I know that your story isn't confined to the Cuban experience. In fact, this is a similar story I've heard by learning history and speaking with people across the way. But what makes it unique is that it's your story, and it is the Cuban story that we are connected to. Other things as we move forward, I hope that we can gain an understanding of what Cuban and American culture is from your perspective. I think you have a unique perspective where you grew up till you're about 19, just turned 19 years old in Cuba, never having left the country, the island, and then boom, now you're in the United States in 1962, and you've been here ever since. So I do think you have a fascinating story that can really shed light on what is this Cuban culture that you were raised in, and what is this American culture that you moved to, and what have you taken from your Cuban culture and applied into throughout your life? And also, what have you taken, adapted, and embraced within the American identity as you grew up and raised your family here in the United States of America? So then finally, the last two things, I hope that at the end of this, as we hear your stories, as we hear the wisdom that you've gained along the way, the failures that you've made, advice, as we say, that you can pass down and share with us, your family, your friends, because I think we have a lot to learn from you. You have an extraordinary story. And then finally, I know, just bringing it back to your experience isn't alone. There are many other people experiencing this, so I hope that other people that may find themselves in similar situations today or in the future can look at your example and your stories as something that's inspirational, something that's motivational, that maybe during those difficult times that they may find themselves, they can look to your story or to somebody that they know and can learn from this story. So that's what I wanted to share here. Papi, I'm going to throw it back to you. And is there any goals or motivations that you have for saying yes to being a part of this podcast series?
Well, I'm very flattered and honored to see what you have created. Love you, and I appreciate what you are doing, which I think is the legacy that you leave to family, which is the most important thing. But you are the young roots that have the enthusiasm and concept of what we're going. But I'm excited about what we're about to do for everybody. And I think we will be able to accomplish this in a because you are the concept creator. So, but as I mold through scenes, we can throw them in there and we get to leave something that everybody can understand, and like you say, is family and for people that one day could use that as some positive way to approach things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like when you hear about just even sharing this, thinking of our cousins, of my brother, my sisters, your own daughters, any of us, we hear these stories that you've shared, and it's just hard to piece it together. And I imagine it's hard for you to piece it together as well yourself.
But we will do that. Of course, with age, recollection become thinner because space and time. But we will. I start digging some and find some pictures because pictures worth 1,000 words and be able to trigger more memories. But we'll do this project together, and really appreciate it and love you mucho.
I'm curious. I'm excited to hear like the revelations that you have along the way too, that maybe you've never thought. Because I am going to ask some questions that maybe you've never been asked before. So let's do this. Well, thanks for sharing some of those goals. And it's funny, at night, my partner will go to bed. Katie, she'll go to bed, and I'll stay up for a couple hours, and I'll just keep looking up Cuban history, American history, and with the context of your life, and writing down all these questions. So the way that we're going to do this, for those of you that are tuning in here and listening to Nuestro Papi, is that we are going to aim to do a recording every week. That's our goal. And if we'll take some weeks off, the holidays are coming up, and that's okay. We'll jump back off where we left off, basically. And we're going to break it down over the course of Papi's life based on kind of geographic location and his age. So there will be a sequence to these episodes. We're going to begin recording where the Prado family comes from in Asturias, Spain. We're going to be traveling there with my mother and my wife. In our next episode, we'll be talking about our ancestors. And then moving forward, we'll jump into Papi's early memories, living in Cuba, being raised in his family and his community. And as you can imagine, his life being born in 1943, by 1959 is when the revolution essentially achieved their aim, in a huge turn in my grandfather's life, but also many other Cubans. We're going to take you all through basically his life, but we're going to learn a lot about not just Papi, my grandfather, but the people he met along the way that made an impact, not just in Dallas, in Cuba, and Florida, but had ripple effects around the world. As we know, the United States doesn't live in a vacuum, and neither does Cuba. Even though it's a small island, you'd be amazed at the impacts and influences and contributions to the world that both places have made. So with that, we'll be recording every week is our goal, and we'll release it to our podcast channels, and then we'll also keep everybody updated through our Facebook and Instagram. In addition to that, what I'm hoping that we can do is my grandfather Papi, as you'll learn a lot of, he's always been involved in food in some capacity. So Papi has an amazing wealth of knowledge about basically the culinary arts, but also what were his interests. So we'll get to learn a lot about Cuban food, American food, which I'm really excited to share because that's something I'm extremely passionate about. Music, Papi loves music. And again, it spans from Cuba into the Americas. And as we know, like cooking, music is global. So I hope that we'll be able to curate essentially some lists of foods, maybe some recipes, and some music playlists that you can also enjoy. And as Papi mentioned earlier, we'll be doing, he has a lot of photos that we've been able to save throughout life. So we'll definitely be sharing these photo albums, which will give extra context to the stories that we get to hear along the way. So with that, we really appreciate you being here today. I think you will find this story extraordinary. And in fact, it's funny because even the ordinary things in our life, I believe, are what makes our life extraordinary at times, especially when we look back and find those moments, those pivot moments that really changed the trajectory of our life in a way we never could have imagined. As again, I find myself here in Spain with my wife. That was just something we never thought of. As my grandfather finds himself in Naples, Florida, I know when he was born. Papi, did you ever think when you were born that you were going to be living the majority of your life in Naples, Florida?
Never live in Cuba. I mean, I never thought of that, but I can't say been a great experience because I have 3 amazing daughters, grandkids, and found the love of my life with Nancy. So I'm grateful in that regard that God has been good to me.
And it's interesting because as we go through, as I've reflected on your life, even the stories I haven't heard yet, I feel that what I'm motivated to share is that you had this humble beginning in a small town in Cuba, which I've been able to go to 5 times, which is another thing I never would have thought of. I didn't even think it was possible to go. But it's a very humble, small town, like what Naples used to be. Naples is a big place now. But I feel like you had this amazing career and life arc where Dallas, Texas was this, that was your prime when you were doing everything. You had built your career, built the family, you've immersed into this country, and so many things were happening in Cuba and in the world, in the United States. And I feel like knowing you over the course of my life, I'm 34, that you've kind of had this really nice return to humble beginnings, kind of where you began. You live with Nancy, my grandmother, your wife, in a home where you've raised Jackie for 30 years. And now you have about to be 4 grandchildren living under the same roof with you. That is like, I can't think of something more Cuban than that.
Right.
And that's amazing. I know you didn't get that opportunity with us and your other grandkids, so I'm just so happy that you get to experience that. And again, it's this whole life that we have that it's truly full circle in so many ways. So let's go ahead and end today. I know we have a week ahead of us. My mother, your daughter, just got here to Spain. We have a lot of fun things to do here for us to show her our new town. And finally, we also invite you to share this with your loved ones and with your fellow community members, especially if you enjoyed this first introduction. But definitely buckle up. I think we'll be diving back into time, into a really interesting part of Cuban history, of my grandfather's life as we move forward. Thank you, Papi, so much. I love you.
I love you too.